time will come, Diana.
You will become all that you dream of and more. And everything will be different.
Before I get started today, I'd like to kindly ask that you wrap the lasso of truth around the like button until it can't breathe anymore. And please subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content just like this. Speaking of the lasso of truth, it seems like a lot of critics who are reviewing this movie need a little lesson in truth. I have to be honest, the critical reception to a DC movie never ceases to amaze me. I'm the first one to admit that they're not all perfect. I'd also admit that there are DC movies that got critically panned that I enjoy. So there's a definite disconnect happening there. So once I finished watching Wonder Woman 1984, I was curious to see what the general consensus was, at least on social media, for this movie. And surprise, surprise, they are mostly negative. Why is it always overwhelmingly negative when these movies come out? Is it because people and critics have been programmed to think that everything that DC puts out is going to be subpar? That if it doesn't follow a very specific formula, that somehow makes it a bad movie? And to be clear, I'm by no means saying that Wonder Woman 1984 is a masterpiece. It definitely has some problems, it has some tone issues, and at times it does feel a bit stitched together after the fact, and I will get into those points as I go on with my review. But a lot of things I see it getting ridiculed for typically get passes if it's in another comic book movie made by a different company. So I feel that there's a clear bias going on here, and the way that these critics are reviewing these movies is clearly having an influence on the public. That's just my opinion, and it's only what I see based on the reactions. See, when people are going to give a review for a movie, I want them to be honest. So if you genuinely didn't like the movie, then yes, be honest and tell me you didn't like it. But you have to keep the standards consistent when you're comparing movies in the same genre, and mostly I'm talking about superhero movies. I actually saw a complaint right before I recorded this that basically said that Diana is not a strong female character. If I had to guess, I'd say it's because her character shows weakness in this film. You know, weakness, something that good characters have to make them relatable to the people watching them. There's got to be something personal for the character to overcome other than just the villain. So I guess because she's not perfect and emotionless, like say Rey or Captain Marvel, she's going to get criticized for that, and people are saying she's not a strong female character. Mind you, the characters that I just mentioned virtually had no weaknesses, and the critics praised them. Do we see a double standard coming into focus here? I'm of the opinion that when a character shows weakness, that makes them a stronger character because it's more for them to overcome. They have to face adversity in order for you to give a shit about them. I believe that most of the criticism being lobbied at this movie simply comes from the fact that it doesn't follow a very specific formula that they have in their head that all superhero movies should abide by. And no one can really convince me otherwise. From the very start of the film, we get a flashback of Diana on Themyscira as a young child, and she's competing against full-grown Amazonians in some kind of relay or obstacle course. It shows that she's always been gifted, but when she actually cheats to get the job done, she learns a very valuable lesson about why truth and patience are just as important as success. Your abilities will only get you so far. So we fast forward to 1984, where she's in full superhero mode, but she's also feeling very empty inside. And that's because she lost the love of her life, the one thing that she desires more than anything else. I think that's a very real emotion that most people can relate to. This movie is all about people accepting things the way that they are and not acting out selfishly and trying to change them. The movie also shows what that selfishness can do to the world and the people around you. So we're introduced to the main villain, Maxwell Lord, and he's a tycoon that isn't as successful as he would seem to be. His business is failing, he's incredibly insecure, so through the course of the film he becomes a very desperate man as he's constantly trying to prove himself. I have to say that Pedro Pascal did an amazing job portraying all aspects of this guy's personality. Everything from the confident to the insecure is very believable. And then we're introduced to Barbara, who she eventually becomes Cheetah, and she is yet another insecure and awkward character. In fact, one of my issues I will say I do have with this movie is that her character seems very familiar to me. This villain type of being an outsider and being nerdy and kind of worshipping the hero throughout the course of the movie, that type of obsessive behavior before they become the villain has been done before many times. Batman Forever and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 are two movies that come to mind that did use that.
I am a winner. I am a winner. I am a winner. I am a winner.
but she does serve as a nice counterbalance to Diana. And once the stone comes into play that basically grants the wish of anyone who holds it, who these characters are quickly start to come into focus. Barbara is envious of Diana, so she wishes that she could be more like her. Diana is lonely and she wants the love of her life back. Maxwell is so desperate for power that he actually wishes for the powers of the stone itself. What they all don't realize is that when you get your wish, the stone takes a little bit of you as payment. They even show that the stone has actually caused the collapse of ancient civilizations. So Diana is losing her powers, Barb loses her warmth and humanity as a result of her wish, and Maxwell gets corrupted by his new power, and it starts to take a physical and emotional toll on him. Again, going back to the original theme, they're all living a lie, and no matter how good that lie makes them feel, there's going to be consequences for it. Steve Trevor's reincarnation into the random guy did seem a little bit shoehorned in at first. Basically like it was just done to add Chris Pine back into the movie because he has chemistry with Gal Gadot. But I have to admit, as the story played out, it does seem to fit the story they are trying to tell. How else are you going to show Diana and put her in a situation where she has to learn to accept the truth? Like she has what she wants now, she has her dead boyfriend back, but because he's back, it's causing the world to experience consequences. And forcing her to make a choice that conflicts with her personal desires. Honestly, that just really worked for me. And another thing that worked for me is the moment where she has to say goodbye to him again. I thought it was really well done. Also, once Maxwell takes over the satellite and starts to broadcast himself all over the world, and this is basically him saying that he's going to grant everyone's wish and that they should all be selfish and wish for things that they've always wanted. This felt like a comic book storyline to me. And him trying to rule the world in some manipulative way, I thought he was easily one of the most interesting parts of this movie. The inclusion of the invisible jet was a nice Easter egg, but just like the golden armor, it did feel a little bit tacked on. It didn't really take me out of the movie or anything like that, but it did feel a bit unnecessary, almost like it was just there simply for fan service. I'll also admit that Wonder Woman learning to fly in this movie is a bit out of nowhere and doesn't really fit the continuity of what they've already established.
That wasn't flying, that was falling with style.
Like, we've already seen movies that technically take place after this movie in the timeline, and she's never flown in any of those movies, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I will say there are some pretty decent action sequences. I particularly like the one where she's attacking the convoy in the long stretch of road in the desert. Unfortunately, there wasn't really a sequence that stood out like the No Man's Land sequence from the first movie, and the final fight with Cheetah did feel a little bit underwhelming. I did enjoy the final moments of the movie, where Wonder Woman basically uses the lasso to broadcast to everyone, showing them what their selfish wishes are doing to the world. She even uses the same tactics on Lord himself to make him denounce his wish, because she shows him that all the chaos that he is causing is putting his son's life in danger. Again, these are really relatable ideas told in a fantastical story. This is something that I feel like is DC's strong suit. They really like to put these lofty ideas and try to incorporate them into superhero movies, and I feel like sometimes people just aren't really ready for that or don't want that from a superhero movie. I will say Wonder Woman 1984 is not perfect, but I did find it in general to be a fun and entertaining experience. It's not as sharp as the first movie, and you could tell it's kind of been meddled with post-production, but I thought the overall theme of the movie was an interesting and unique idea and something that really hasn't been covered before like this. I'm going to recommend that you definitely check out Wonder Woman 1984 if you have the chance and just formulate an opinion for yourself. You can't always listen to critics or social media or Rotten Tomatoes because all those people might be looking for things in a movie that you personally aren't looking for, or vice versa. So did you see Wonder Woman 1984? Let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.